Hey everybody, welcome to today's video. We are with Ellie of Saturn Season Astrology and we're going to talk about Jupiter. Hey Ellie, do you want to say hey to everyone?
Hey, what's up?
Welcome back to the channel. For anyone who doesn't know, Ellie has been here before, and we're going to chit chat about Jupiter. And before I forget, you can also go check out a video we did on her channel on Uranus. So make sure after you watch this video that you go straight there and check it out because we talk all about Uranus, what it means in aspect to different planets, and we talk about some of our own experiences with having Uranus in our own charts. So you'll want to check that out. But
Yes.
yes. Um, and today we're talking about Jupiter. We're talking about that planet, and we're going to just tell you guys all about it. So we're going to start with um, kind of the basics of what Jupiter is, right? So Jupiter is a greater benefic. It is a planet that represents like wisdom, teaching, philosophy, our ability to have faith or our ability to trust that things are going to be okay. And usually it's associated with good things. It is a greater benefic. It is a good planet. It does bring blessings. And later we'll talk a little bit about the nuances there. But
Yeah.
are there any keywords you can think of that I forgot?
Understanding when I think of when I think of Jupiter, like what Jupiter wants to express, or what it needs to express, or what have you in a chart or in transit or whatever. Understanding is a big one. Understanding and assimilation of information. On the other end of things, we have Mercury, which is like the quick sharing of things. It takes the information in, spits it back out, but Jupiter is the actual like assimilating it and understanding it. So I do find that Jupiter, those two things are keywords or things Jupiter wants to express. Beliefs. And while Jupiter, certainly has ties to, religious and metaphysical beliefs, I kind of open this up even wider to include, you mentioned philosophy or philosophical, definitely philosophical beliefs could fall here. Even political beliefs, anything, any kind of belief, really. And how those are expressed depends on the sign and, whatever,
Mhm.
whatever. But those are big ones. Luck. I mean, that's the one that, people are always like, where, tell me about my luck. Tell me about my Jupiter. And I mean, Jupiter totally can be luck, but, I think sometimes that gets harped on a little too much.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and one of the things too about that luck is that sometimes we don't recognize our luck,
Yeah.
right? Sometimes and this is something as an astrologer and even as a human, it's like, even when I'm doing readings on people and I'll be like, these are your challenges. And the person's like, yes. And I'm like, and this is your blessing. And they're like, oh yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like we feel deeply connected to our problems, but we don't always recognize that the things that go well for us don't come easily to other people. Like it takes a little bit of like, detachment from your own self sometimes, or age or wisdom to really always see our blessings fully, even in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. And then okay, there's something else you said that I loved. I love how you compared Jupiter to Mercury because they're like two sides of a bit of a
Yeah.
spectrum, right? Where like Mercury being what are the facts, what is accurate, what is verifiable and provable. And, like you said, the quicker energy, whereas Jupiter's about like taking it in and like going over the same information again, or like going deeper with it, or really understanding the reason why, or like even going really, really in depth on a topic that is maybe not even always religious, but just getting really, really deep into the meaning of a thing so that you're understanding the whole thing. So even if I was going to compare it to astrology, I would think like Mercury is like memorizing what a placement means, but Jupiter is like knowing that the sign is, a mutable sign and like understanding the reason why it is the way it is, kind of a thing.
Absolutely. And even the actual synthesis of the chart, I would tie to Jupiter, right? Like tying it all together. Then Mercury would come into play with relaying it,
Yeah.
to a client or to a friend or whatever.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And so one of the things we were kind of talking about is how Sometimes Jupiter is a little bit misunderstood, even though it is a good planet. There can be things about it that are actually not always positive. And so, what is your like? What are your thoughts on ways Jupiter can be not positive?
Well, you know, Jupiter is Jupiter is abundant also, right? Like it is an abundant planet. It's expansive. It's an expansive planet, expands. So sometimes this can lead to overindulgence or um, overdoing things, and or even being a little extra at times. This planet can kind of function like that, and I think oftentimes there are good intentions with it, right? But it can not always, not universally, but it can overdo things, right? Um, that is one thing that comes to mind, and then the other, beliefs, right? Beliefs are a Jupiter thing, and while like at a higher vibration, right? Planets function at a higher and a lower vibration, light, shadow, whatever, however you want to think of it. Jupiter is very, I think, open-minded. At a lower vibration, it might be a little dogmatic about its beliefs, about what it believes.
Yeah, I could totally see that. And I could even see how, sometimes the challenge for Jupiter, if it's not like if it is too much, is that it's like, do you live up to the beliefs you have, right? So sometimes that's a
Mhm.
challenge for like strong Sagittarius energy or strong Jupiter energy is like having these ideals of how life should be or how people should be. And then,
Uh-huh.
not always even practicing what they are preaching necessarily in certain cases, or, just having these beliefs that are so high that it's like, who is living by that even?
Yeah, there can be yes, there can be a little bit of like put your money where your mouth is kind of thing. With Jupiter, with Sagittarius energies, it is something that it's like you kind of got to watch it as a Sagittarius myself, Sag rising too. Kind of have to, I do have to. That does happen for me where I'm like thinking to myself, okay, so like this is how I feel, like this is what I believe. Can I live up to this myself? Because if I can't, I need to shut the fuck up. Or you know what I mean? Seriously, I mean, I've had some hard conversations with myself about that. That kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And another thing too, when you talked about, like more isn't always better, that kind of idea, I do think that sometimes wherever we have Jupiter or Sagittarius in our charts is where we could, like, it's never enough, like we
Yeah.
always want to go further, right? Because that archer kind of wants to always shoot the arrow and there's always the next adventure. And so Jupiter has that positive connotation of like, experiencing life. Like I've never met a Sag rising who wasn't like fun or like when they showed up, it's like, I'm here, like there's this, they just bring this kind of like this lust for life almost, to things. And people with strong Sagittarius energy will be sort of like that, where like they just want to get out and experience. And that makes, it's a lot of fun to be that way and to be around that. But then also there's the other side where sometimes it's like the grass is always greener syndrome, where it's like you just want the next thing instead of whatever you got going on where you are. So there's kind of a
Yeah.
positive and negative for that as well.
Yes. Yeah. There is. I can say that I'm glad that there are a few things in my. I feel like I would be a very different person if I didn't have a few things going. I feel like I would get on my nerves if I didn't have a few other things in my chart to kind of tone some of that down. I would
Right.
I would probably be somebody that would get on their own nerves.
That's so funny. It's so
But
funny. Well, and yeah, I mean, I just think of the kind of person, like the worst case scenario with like a strong Jupiterian personality would be the person who's always telling you what you should do or like what they think about something. And like, I mean, I don't ever get that vibe from you, but it's like, well, I think this, and it's just like that need to kind of impress your morals onto people when they're not, like the
yeah,
preachy side of it, I guess you could say.
I do. most of the things when I have an opinion about something, I will be like, I will share it, but I'll be like, opinions are like assholes. Everybody has them, so you don't have to, and again, I'll also tell people, if you want me to fuck off, I will fuck off. You don't have you do not have to worry about hurting my feelings. If it's like, Ellie, I don't want to hear your opinion. I don't give a shit what you think. I will back off and I will not take offense. You know, but I really do try not to. I do try to watch that though, because I know that that's not always something, even prefacing it with that like disclaimer, I know it's not always something that people, yeah.
Yeah, well, and I think that maybe this is a normal kind of life sort of lesson for people, Sag risings or Sages in general, is like, how when to not speak your opinion, like when it's appropriate and when it's not. And I can relate to that a lot as well when I was younger, being very opinionated and just kind of not ever stopping to consider, like, does the
Yeah.
person care?
Yeah.
Whereas now I'm much more aware, like, this person has not asked me what I thought, and it's just, it's nice to have that wisdom as well.
Yeah. When it's time to just shut the fuck up and listen to your, you know what I mean? Cause yeah, sometimes when people want to vent or want to share things, they're not looking for an opinion. They just want you to hold space for them and,
Yeah.
and be there as somebody. So they're not, I think we all talk. I know I talk to myself. I think we all kind of talk to ourselves. Sometimes it's nice to actually talk to a person, but we don't necessarily need them to say anything back. Just knowing that
Yeah.
the other person is there.
Yeah, that's so true. Okay, well, now let's go to, let's just talk a little bit about some Jupiter transits. We're both going to give an example of a transit of Jupiter in our lives and kind of how it showed up, and kind of talk about how Jupiter isn't just like pure gold always, but how these different kind of transits might show up in totally different ways that might not just be considered luck, or like
Yeah.
an easy luck button. So do you want to go ahead and share first the transit that you had that you wanted to talk about?
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So this was towards the beginning of 2020, and I had in my natal chart, I have my moon in Capricorn in the first house, and I have, just to also say, I have Jupiter retrograde in Aries in the fourth. So they're squaring one another in my chart, and I had transit Jupiter conjunct my natal moon. Also, to give you another idea, Cancer is on the cusp of my eighth house. So eighth house stuff was also impacted in this transit, as was first house stuff with Jupiter, with having Sagittarius, being a Sag rising. So these houses, were also included in this way as well. But I, my little 12th house sun likes to, knows things, but doesn't always want to know them. Kind of keeps its head in the sand, or ignores things that perhaps it shouldn't. And I do know this about myself. I'll let things, I'll ignore things for a while, things that I shouldn't, personal things usually. And I had this feeling that my ex-husband there was something not right. Like there was just something not right. So I did this truth spell. And truth is also, another Jupiter concept, right? Like seeking of truth, what truth is to the person. This may not be in a universal sense, but what truth is to the person. And I just had this feeling there was something wonky with him, and so I did this truth spell, and it was like the day after that, or the day after that, I came across this treasure trove of stuff online on his like different identities that he was using to it's not funny, but I kind of have to, there's it's so absurd. Even to this day, it's still so absurd. But he picking up all kinds of random women, I was just like, what the fuck? But this, I do feel like this, It was like, you ask and you shall receive the truth. You know, this is a very, this, and this did not feel lucky. Like when I found, I was devastated. I was absolutely devastated. I didn't show it, but I was devastated. And, but it was actually a lucky thing in retrospect. I mean, 3 years out now, and I'm in such a better place than I, and it didn't feel lucky at the time, but it was lucky in the big scheme of things.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think that's so kind of incredible that like Jupiter transit brought a truth spell, like a truth spell, just such
Yeah.
a almost literal
Yes.
manifestation, but then bringing things to light that, I mean, would you say that it may have affected your own faith at the time, like your own faith in just what you believe in and like
Oh,
that kind of
oh,
thing?
absolutely. Because when I mean, the stuff that I found, this wasn't like something that had just been going on a few months. This had been going on for years. And I had no idea. Well, I guess unconsciously, I think I was bearing right, but I never had any proof, never had any. So yeah, when I found this out, even though I think unconsciously I did know there was something wrong. I mean, I was like, I don't fucking know this person. Like, I don't know this person. So it caused me to kind of lose belief in, for a while, or question belief in relationships, belief in myself and in choosing a partner. Like, I'm like thinking, who the fuck did you choose? Like, you know what I mean? Yeah, it brought all of those things very much into play.
Yeah,
But
okay. That makes sense. And can you remind me what was the transit? Jupiter was it opposite your natal moon?
no, it's conjuncted.
Ah, conjunct. Okay. Okay. And
it,
then
it was in
yeah,
squaring natal Jupiter.
that's right. Okay, so squaring natal Jupiter, bringing
Mm-hmm.
some of the tension, and like you could say even bringing out the natal promise of moon square Jupiter, which could be like bring up challenges to your faith where it's like something has to change, right? Which a square is usually adjustment is needed. So it's
Yeah,
like an emotional situation where you have to adjust your faith or your beliefs to the situation.
yeah, and even to reality, right? Like to reality. Because at that point, it was like I can ignore a lot. I do, but I was like, bitch, you can't ignore this. Like, you can't, you can't. I'm thinking to myself, if you ignore this, like, there's something really wrong with you. And so it did kind of cause me to question a lot of things about about myself, about even about, with natal Jupiter in the fourth, about family, about, yeah, I mean, all that. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and even thinking about how the fourth house and the first house kind of sometimes do represent like our needs versus the needs of a partner or the needs of our family of origin, and how those things don't always line up, and that tension between like our own
Mm-hmm.
life path and the path we would need to take to like kind of like make someone else happy
Mm-hmm.
or keep the family at peace. So yeah, that all totally tracks as far as that goes.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, well, so this is kind of an example of how like there might be something good in a Jupiter transit, but we don't always like if someone asked you when that was happening, if it was lucky, you probably would not have said yes, right?
No, no, at the time, no, no. But in retrospect, yes,
Yeah.
because if I hadn't ever, well, I don't know. I guess we don't really know, but I think to myself, if I had never found all that, maybe eventually I would have. Maybe I would still be where I am now. But if I had never found that, I would have still stayed in a marriage that was really a very big lie, and that, for somebody with Sag rising and Jupiter as a chart ruler, that's a terrible fucking feeling or thought
Right.
concept. Like, I don't even. Uh.
Yeah, 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 totally. Okay, so that totally makes sense with just, just all of that and truth being such a theme and it's nice to hear too that having some time after that feeling like It sounds like more at peace with that, or more, accepting of the lesson, perhaps.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I learned, yeah. I mean, because what I learned was don't don't ignore things. Don't keep your head in the sand. Don't do that.
Right. Well, and I bet if you were in a situation where that same theme sort of crept up again, I bet you would probably react differently knowing what you know now, so that,
Yeah.
it's like you have that wisdom you take with you through every future relationship you have.
Yes. Yes. And for that I am grateful for. I am.
Totally. That totally makes sense. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and share my story now.
Yeah.
And you don't know what it's gonna be, so it'll be fun to hear, what you have to say about it too, if you
Okay.
want. So I wrote this down so I would remember. So okay, so when I was looking for Jupiter transits in my chart, I started to find the first thing I looked for was, when did Uranus hit Jupiter? Now, for those watching, not everyone's not going to have that, right? Because Uranus takes about 80 years to go around the chart, and depending on where your Jupiter is, you may not have Uranus conjunct Jupiter anytime recently, but I did. So, of course, that's the transit I looked at first because of how Uranus functions like an on and off switch. So, I thought it'd be a really clear indicator of what this Jupiter means. So, for everyone watching, I have Jupiter in whole sign in the sixth house in Aquarius. It's the fifth house in Placidus. And so, this is crazy because when Uranus hit that natal Jupiter, um, because it went past it and retrograded and went
Yeah.
back again. So one of those hits was when I got into a program called Drug Court when I was 13. I was
Ah,
13. I went to drug
okay.
court. So I got in trouble, right? Like I got arrested. And I think the first hit was maybe one of the times I got arrested
Ah,
with weed and like went to juvie and stuff. Um, and so then in July of 99, I entered drug court. I had no idea what I was signing up for. I had no intention of being sober. I just thought I would not get charged. So I didn't want to get
yeah.
charged for a couple of possession of marijuana charges. So I did this stupid thing and signed the stupid paper, which I ended up eventually getting sober. And so the next transit was like maybe a few weeks after I went to treatment.
Okay.
So I went to treatment in December of 2000. And I wanted to go to treatment at that time. I wanted to get sober. I thought it would help me, and it did. And so it was interesting. I was kind of reflecting on this and how at the time I would not have considered any of this good, right? I would not have said it was good to get arrested or to go to drug court or to go to treatment. Like
Yeah.
it all sucked. Like I was 13, or maybe I was 14 by the time I went to treatment because my birthday's in December. And then, um, or maybe I think actually maybe I was 14 the whole time because I think I turned 15 in treatment. I remember that birthday, and I was in there for Christmas, and I was in there for I felt like I missed everything. My
Yeah.
brother got married while I was in there. Like
Oh,
it's that, like I remember how much it sucked at the time. But then it's just kind of a perfect example of how Jupiter means luck, but it's not always the kind of luck we like. I think of lucky as like you win the lottery, like just something good happens
yeah.
and then you're better, like going to treatment as a teenager probably did not feel lucky. And it's like, no one would say, wow, you're so lucky.
And you said it
But
was
oh,
in
go
the
ahead.
sixth, in this, I'm sorry to mean to cut, in the sixth house. Is that what you said?
Yeah, so Jupiter is in my sixth house. And at the same time, transiting Jupiter was trining my natal sun, which is my 12th house ruler.
Ah,
So for those who don't know, treatment centers go in the 12th house. And so I was thinking about this too, because I would not put a sixth house transit to be treatment. But I was
oh,
thinking about it because it's like the change in routine
uh-huh.
that it indicates, which, anything can be a change of routine, but definitely
Totally.
going to treatment changed my routine, right? Because I wasn't going to school. I was like, I don't know. We
Totally.
just had like all this structured time, and like Fridays were pizza day, it was just a different routine, right?
Well, and even I mean, sixth house can totally be physical health too. So it's like bringing yeah, I mean, your physical health was changing as well. So
That is true. That is true. And plus, like the idea of the sixth house of being habits as well, like what you do, like what you put in your body, kind of, and like so a habit change. Sometimes we're going to see that. We
yeah,
might see it in the fifth house as well, just because of the pleasure, like if you're letting go of
yeah,
something you enjoy or you're overindulging in something too much. But
yeah.
another thing too about this that kind of brings it all home with astrology is that at that time my progressed moon was in the 12th house.
Ah, okay,
So
okay,
like it's just such a classic 12th house transit,
yeah, it
and
is.
having the trine from Jupiter and being for me because my son's in the fourth house. So that's like
Uh-huh.
also represents home, so like leaving home, but
Yeah,
trining from Jupiter in the eighth, where it's like leaving home for the purpose of expansion, but in a
yeah,
good, in a positive way, right? In a way that
yeah,
like your world is bigger now, right? With eighth house stuff. Sometimes you intentionally will go out to like expand your mind, and sometimes something will happen and it will do it to you, usually with the eighth
yeah,
house stuff, that's positive.
yeah, yeah. Especially with its concept of like the other people's resources, value, that kind of shit. Yeah, happening to, other people being involved or things happening to you. Yeah,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So a lot of people, that's like, those are the two main things I see with the eighth house is either someone's money or their or taxes or, something like that. Or like sometimes I've seen like people do like go do ayahuasca while they have an eighth house
yeah,
transit or like initiate something that like that's like for the purpose of like clearing their psychology or healing or
yeah,
things like that as well.
yeah, yeah. Absolutely, the psychology aspect. Yeah,
So
very.
I'm excited because Jupiter will actually be trining my sun again soon. So we'll
Ooh,
see what
that's cool.
happens.
That's cool. That's very cool. I'm about to have my Jupiter return.
Ooh, nice.
I'm not sure, and that's another thing, people, misconceptions, people kind of automatically assume that, oh, they're always good. And I don't know. I mean, for clients and stuff, oftentimes they are, but, sometimes.
That's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up because I feel like that's one thing as a new astrologer I sort of misinterpreted. I just thought every Jupiter return was going to be like massively amazing. And it's like I went and looked back at mine, and one of mine was like I got into a relationship and I was happy, So like that makes sense. Like something positive happened. But then the last one, I mean, I just worked more. I think I got a raise. Like it wasn't like there was something massively wonderful that sort of now maybe, maybe when I look back in 10 years and I see, oh, the work that I did during that Jupiter return, or 12 years, I should say, right? Because that's the Jupiter
Yeah,
cycle. Maybe in 12 years, those North Node videos that I did will be like the thing, I don't
maybe.
know.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know.
yeah, down the line, the work that, yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
And that's another thing too about transits is sometimes the thing that happens while the transit is happening, you don't know how significant it's going to be to your life years down the road until looking back on it in retrospect.
Yeah, absolutely. Is your natal Jupiter? I can't remember. Is it retrograde?
No.
Okay, I just couldn't remember. I've noticed that, like with the with the retrograde Jupiters, I have one in like clients. And again, this is not universal, so nobody take this and think that it's I. But I have noticed a trend of like, the Jupiter stuff does seem to, the Jupiter transits, they do tend to pay off down the line for the retrograde Jupiter person.
That makes sense.
It's not always seen right away.
That
So
would make
again,
sense.
not universal. Nobody take that and think that that's necessarily applied to you. It's just a theme that I've
That makes
noticed.
sense. Well, then if we think about what a return is, right? So for anyone watching who doesn't know, a Jupiter return is when Jupiter comes back to where it was when you were born. That cycle takes about 12 years. And so rather than just thinking about it, because it's not just the end of that cycle where you get maybe some of the benefits from that previous 12-year cycle, but it's also the beginning of a new cycle too. So it's like you might be starting something that, even in like what would it be? Like 4 years when Jupiter trines Jupiter, you might get some positive results then, or, like there's different ways it can play out. And like
Absolutely.
with my Jupiter, for example, the last Jupiter return, Saturn was there as well. So it's possible that it just wasn't quite as good of a Jupiter return because it's like Saturn tends to restrict. And so maybe the good things are more Saturnian. Like I had more work to do. I got a raise. I had my
Yeah.
job got a little bit harder. I was working on my YouTube channel. Like
Yeah.
I just worked more.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's still, I mean, it's better than not having a job or, like being starving or something, right? Like it's still
Absolutely.
blessings. They're just Saturnian blessings rather than more of the just plain Jupiter blessings.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
yeah. So I think the moral is like don't over like put too much stock into Jupiter bringing you amazing things, but it can still be good. It's just the
Yeah.
way that it can be good sometimes is that there's a good thing while something else bad is happening, or like it makes the bad thing less bad, like you get like oh, like the one you were talking about with the 12th house where it's like you get in
Oh,
a
the
car
client.
accident but then you live.
I have a client that um has their Jupiter in the 12th house, and they have been in a couple really bad car accidents where they should have died, like probably should have died, just because of how bad the accident was. And they lived both times, right? With really pretty minimal damage to their person, right? Like an accidents like these, I would think that somebody would walk away being real fucked up, and they weren't. And they were pretty close together, decently close together, right? Without giving away, but decently close together. And they were talking about how unlucky they were, how how they totaled two vehicles, kind of talking about essentially having bad luck, and without being, and I know it's like annoying because it's like I don't want to sit there and be like, let me tell you all the positive things that you have to say or that I have to say about it when you're sitting here and telling me about your troubles. I want to honor the fact that I realize this is your experience and this is how you feel, and I respect that, I honor that. But at the same time, I was like, you lived, you lived, and I don't know that would have happened for everybody in both of these cases. And it's that 12th house Jupiter, it's like not always, not universally, right? But in this person's case, it's very much like a little guardian angel over their shoulder, like or a little protector of some kind. And I really do think it has to do with that in their case.
Yeah, yeah, and that's such a good example because when we're moving through life and something bad happens, it's natural to like if you think, okay, what's a lucky Jupiter, you would not think getting into car accidents and living. You would
Huh?
think like, winning the lottery or like,
Yeah.
having something only positive. And so
Yeah.
I think maybe that's part of how Jupiter can work sometimes, because it's like you can't always get just the positive. Like life doesn't have a lot of those only positive moments, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. Like usually there's even in the best transit, usually there's something squaring something, or
Yeah.
like,
Oh
and
yeah.
that's like life, right? Like there the yin and the yang, where there's like the good and the bad and the bad and the good, and it's like that's kind of just how it works.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Yeah, it's very rarely just like you pull the slot machine, wins really big, and everything is great. It's yeah, it's usually not.
I mean, that's kind of why it's hard to wrap your head around Jupiter and luck because it's like, we think of good things as like in our mind as like everything is gonna feel good if that this happens, or like even with like positive transits that really do happen, it's like, and this is why I veer away from the predictions, because even if someone tells you like something really good is going to happen, Usually we fill in the details in our mind with what we think that's supposed to look like, and the reality never matches up, even if it's a good thing. Like, even if I got $1 million tomorrow, I would still have to figure out where to put the money.
Yeah,
And
what
then
to do with it.
I'd have to figure out how to deal with people who want to just use me. It's like
Oh yeah, you'd have
every
motherfuckers hitting you up like, "Hey, give me that." Yeah, oh yeah, that would be annoying.
And it's like the whole Buddhist concept that life is suffering. It's not that like life is horrible, but that even the most positive situation has a negative thing that comes with it. Like
Yeah,
everything in life has something that comes with it that's not like utopia, if that makes sense.
absolutely. Absolutely.
But Jupiter's still good, it still
Yeah,
brings us those blessings and everything.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. I mean, overall, it is yes, but it does. Like everything, it's like all. I think. Well, I just I think some people just they harp too much on planets' shadow or their light, and they have both. They all have both.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Exactly. So we'll go ahead and stop there. I think that's a perfect place to close it out. And you guys, don't hesitate to go check out that video on Ellie's channel, Let's F with Astrology, on YouTube that she and I did about Uranus. And we do go into some details about the different ways Uranus, in connection to other planets in the birth
Yes.
chart, manifests. So it'll be a good one to go check out.
Yes.
And do you
Yes.
want to tell people where they can find you as well?
Yeah, sure. You can find me on Instagram at Saturn Season Astrology. You can find me on YouTube at Let's F with Astrology. And you can find me on my website, which is saturnseason.com.
All right, everyone, go check her out and let us know in the comments below where your natal Jupiter is and how you feel like that shows up in your life. I know I would love to hear from you guys, and it'll be fun to
Same
talk
here.
about how that Jupiter manifests.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, everyone, we'll see you guys in the next video.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.